sharing my rage because I was angry. Yeah. And I want you to be angry too, and I don't want you to tell me not to be angry. I don't care about your cousin or the fact that he's a priest.
Right.
And I'm going to think badly about every priest right now because I want to. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
Hey, don't get too angry. Remember to pray. No, I'm going to be angry, and I'm not going to pray right now. Our priest is very nice. He doesn't molest children. Yeah, well, I'd have told you the same thing about mine 4 years ago.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Jennifer Roback Morse, founder and president of the Ruth Institute, and welcome to today's episode of the Dr. J Show. My guest today is Mr. Alex Payton. I've invited Alex to join me on the show because Alex and his family have had a very traumatic experience over the last few years, and it's something that I wanted to share with you. He's willing to share it with you. And my point in having him on is for all of us to understand just what it is that childhood sex abuse does to not only the victim, but his family. And so Mr. Payton, young Mr. Payton, is willing to share that experience with us of what it's meant to him and his family, and also what we can do, we as lay people, not clergy, not bishops, but just ordinary folk in the pews, what we can do that might be helpful, and some things that we should avoid. So anyway, Alex Payton, thank you so much for being my guest today. Welcome to the Dr. J Show.
Thank you, Dr. Morse.
So it's great to have you on. I really appreciate it. I'm acquainted with your mom and dad. They were some of the very first people I interviewed when I was starting to try to do video interviews, and the interview is really crude technologically, but it was some great content that they gave for us. So I appreciate you joining us today. So if you don't mind, tell me a little bit about your family before, if I could say this, before all this happened. What was your family like?
We were a very peaceful. That would be the best way to say it. We were on cruise control, you could say, just living our lives, having a good time. Nothing really. When road bumps hit, we just kind of got over them. They were tiny road bumps anyway. It really was just a very peaceful, non-dramatic existence, you could say.
And your family is a Catholic family, and you have how many brothers and sisters?
I have 5 other brothers and sisters, so it's six total in the family.
Okay, and you're a homeschool family?
Yes, we were home. I was my younger siblings are all probably going to be homeschooled throughout all of high school. I went to John Paul the Great Academy for my senior year, and Oliver went to John Paul the Great for a year as well. So okay. I graduated from a private school.
Okay. Okay. But for most of your childhood, you had a homeschool
most of our childhood, we were homeschooled all the way up.
Okay. And so people who are part of the homeschool community will kind of recognize a family like yours, the big minivan.
Absolutely.
The big van and the big gang of kids, and the party starts when the Paytons show up. And
I would say we really were a typical just homeschool family.
Yeah.
Living out in the country.
Yeah.
Peaceful.
Yeah.
Doing school.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're here in Louisiana. You guys are somewhere in the Lafayette Diocese. Is that correct?
We're in the Lafayette Diocese. We're in, we live in LeBeau. So northern St. Landry Parish.
Okay. Very well. So a few years ago, your brother confided something in you. So tell people just a little bit about when he chose to confide in you and roughly what he told you.
So leading up to my marriage, and I'm not going to go on with the dates because it's all melded together. I can't even separate what the day, what the years were. But leading up to my marriage, my brother was just not himself. You can just tell he wasn't himself. Very angry. Had some kind of destructive behaviors, alcohol, things like that. And I'd asked multiple times, what's going on? What's wrong? All those different things, and didn't really get an answer. And it was the night before my bachelor party, or 2 nights before my bachelor party. I was waiting for my friends from Florida to come in. And I want to say it was 1 a.m., 1:30 in the morning. And my brother and I were outside smoking cigarettes. I remember I looked at him And I was like, what the hell's going on? Like, I'm about to get married. I'm going to have a family, and like, that's going to have to be my main focus. Like, I can't keep worrying about you. I can't keep asking about what's wrong with you. Like, something's got to give. You've got to tell me something. Like, there's something on your mind, on your soul. Something's going on. Like, you need to let me know now. And I didn't expect anything major. I thought it was just, I don't know, I'm depressed or something. Like just something some young person would be going through that isn't really. I mean, not that it's not major, but nothing like this. And I remember he was silent for a little while, and then he just started crying, and he just looked at me and he said, "Father Mike molested me." And I was just like that. Father Mike molested me. End of story. And I remember I looked at him and I said, "For real? Like, you're being serious?" Like, because I mean, that was just, I wasn't expecting that, right? And then he started crying and he said, "Yes."
Wow.
And then I lost it. I started throwing things. I was yelling, not at him, but just in general yelling. I threw a glass ashtray against the carport. I didn't even know. I didn't know what else to do. I went berserk, for lack of better words. I just went absolutely insane. And so that was the moment. And after that, I called my wife. It wasn't my wife at the time, but I called her first, and she freaked out because me and Oliver were all friends. We were a friend group, and Oliver helped to hook me and my now wife up. He was the one that really pushed us, together. So we were really a friend group. We'd all go out and do things together. And Oliver made me promise Dad that he wouldn't leave the house after figuring out, because he was scared that Dad would go kill Father Mike, and then Dad would be in jail.
Wow.
So when Dad came out,
he wanted you, but hold on, your brother. Just to pause here and kind of take a breath. That I'm just asking the viewers to think about the dynamics of what's going on in this family. Okay, and so your brother wanted you to be the one to tell your dad. He didn't want to tell your dad.
No, I told him we had to tell Dad.
Yeah.
And he was concerned. He was worried. His biggest concern was that Dad would go kill him, and then Dad would be the one to go to jail.
Yeah. And is your dad the kind of person who would go kill someone?
No.
Right.
Not. I mean, now, I say no, but I don't know what he was feeling after hearing this. So
right.
Maybe,
right, exactly.
But no, not typically.
But your brother's been sitting with this set of thoughts for a long time. Can you tell people roughly how long it was between the time it happened and the time he told you?
I think at this point it was close to 3 years.
Yes. So he's been working this in his mind. In his mind, he's thinking about, if I tell, this might happen, or whatever, but a lot of mental stuff has gone on in that period of time while he's thinking.
Absolutely.
Anyway, yeah. Okay. So what did your dad do? What did happen?
So Dad is able to handle things quite well. And all I remember is he sat down, because the night's a blur for me as well, but Dad had sat down, and Oliver told him, "Father Mike molested me." And then Dad said, "Can you leave us alone for a second, Alex?" And I walked off, and at this point I was done too. So I called my soon-to-be wife at that point as well. And so I spoke with her while Dad spoke with Oliver. And started asking questions and figuring out things. But he handled it. He was in the moment, then and there, handled it extremely strongly, better than I did. He didn't throw anything. So yeah, he was tough as a rock here in all this. So
your dad, just to get some background, let's say a few words about your dad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's my understanding that your dad has some kind of background in law enforcement.
Yeah, he was a juvenile parole officer for a while, an adult probation and parole officer as well. And he has other background in law enforcement as well.
Okay.
So at the time, he was, if I'm not mistaken, still working as a adult probation and parole officer.
I see. And your father also has some relationship to Father Mike.
Yeah, he of course was the
this is an important
Yeah.
aspect of your family story. What was their relationship like?
So dad was Father Mike's deacon, and Father Mike also encouraged dad to enter the diaconate as well and continue through the diaconate whenever dad had any doubts or concerns or anything like that. So we had been close with Father Mike for years.
Yeah.
Years, even before he was the deacon, because we were at that parish even before he was ordained. So we were all very, very close.
Yes, which adds to the sense of betrayal
Mm-hmm.
about
absolutely.
the whole thing.
So the fact that he even told me, and the manner in which he did it, I could tell being there that it was painful that he even had to say it.
Yeah.
It was not something he really wanted to tell. It's not like he said, "Oh, I've been waiting to tell." No,
Right.
like it was difficult, and you can tell just to even tell me and let me in on this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And he obviously he trusted you, which is why he was able to tell you. But you have a sense that he could have kept that secret a lot longer.
Not without self-destructing, but yeah.
But
I mean,
well,
he would have.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I've told him before, and I've told other people this. We'd have found him dead in a ditch.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you cannot hold something like that for that long.
No, that's right. That's right. But you, the way you describe it, you significantly prompted him to reveal, and it took significant prompting on your part.
It took a lot. It took more than just that night. Like it was months of years of asking, what's wrong?
Something's wrong.
What's going on?
So and so you look back on it now, and you can see that roughly when this must have started, because you had been asking him questions. So how old are we talking about? How old was he when he, roughly looking back on it, calculating, how old was he when he was molested?
16.
16. Okay.
16.
Okay. And had he been close to Father Mike? I mean, were you surprised to hear this about Father Mike? Let's put it that way.
So, when you look back, I'm not surprised. But in the moment, absolutely. So Father Mike exhibited characteristics of grooming, but in the moment, you add a Roman collar to that and his age, and he becomes just a socially inept old person, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
what would be what would be an example of a behavior that you kind of overlooked at the time, but looking back on it, you go, there it was.
Two things come to mind. At one point, I was, as a high schooler, actually, when I got back from college in Florida, so I'd just gotten back to Louisiana, and I had a girlfriend that my parents didn't like. Right, typical stuff. Girlfriend was not my now wife, right? So clear that up. But girlfriend my parents didn't like.
Okay.
And I remember I had went over to Father Mike's house to drink coffee, which was something I typically do if I was bored, and he would invite me. And we were talking about it, and he said, if you ever need just a place to stay, you can come sleep at my house. I have an extra bedroom. You can sleep here, and we can have fun and yada. And I declined. So, no, thanks. But something that just when you look back at it, that's just not something I'd expect from a priest, especially an older priest. Now, I was of age at this point, right. 18, 19, right? But it still isn't. It's still something that's kind of, I don't know, it just kind of sets you off a little bit. And the second one is more obvious, and that was the touching. he touched a lot. Because I was an altar server for him for years. I trained the altar servers. He touched a lot. You walk into a door, he guides you through with his hand on your lower back, right? You're an altar server. You're tying the ropes on your robe. He wants to try to help you. Of course, right at that point, he's right by your crotch. You're in confession, and after confession's over, he puts his hand on your knee and goes, "Good confession." You're like, "Oh."
Wait a minute. This is face-to-face confession?
He only did face-to-face confessions. You can request through, like you could do it through like a screen, but he never did that. He just opened the door and you'd go sit in. I hated face-to-face confessions anyway. But no, he would just go sit in the chair and you just plopped yourself across from him.
And then he would touch you at the end of confession.
You just put your hand on your knee, just be like, "Oh, good confession." And it's just subtle enough where you're like, he's just some old guy who kind of doesn't know that like we have boundaries these days, right? Like that's kind of what you process. You're like, "Oh, that's uncomfortable. I kind of don't want him helping me tie my rope right by my crotch." So you just kind of like push away from him, but you were able to excuse that as he's just kind of like a grandpa who doesn't know his limits. Like no harm, just we don't do that these days, right? We don't just touch people. And then of course there was the money. He would give us money on our birthday, give us $100 and tell us we have to keep it a secret.
What?
Yeah, we'd have to keep it a secret from other kids at the parish. And he's giving it to us because we're the deacon's son, or he's giving it to us because we help around the church. But it makes.
Did he ask you to keep it secret from your parents also?
Yes. And the reason he did that, and realize when I'm receiving this money, I'm like 14, 15, right? My brother's even younger. So think about how we're interpreting this. He goes, if they know I'm giving you so much money, they're going to tell me to stop giving you money because they know I'm just an old priest. That made sense in my mind. I said, "You're absolutely right." Because my mom and dad, if they would say something like, "He shouldn't be giving you that. He's an old priest."
Yeah, right.
Make a lot of money. So it makes total sense. Like in my mind, I'm like, absolutely. I want $100 every year.
Right.
I got games to buy, right?
Yeah, right. But so looking back on it, for me as an adult, looking at it, and probably you now too, the biggest thing is secret from your parents.
He succeeded. I kept a secret.
Major red flag. Yeah.
I kept a secret, and in return, I got money for it. I mean, that's what really happened. It was a transaction. He was buying my secrecy, right? And me at that age, I'm like, heck yeah, I'm about to go buy a game.
Right. And you at that age, not realizing that what he has just figured out is that you can be bought to keep a secret. Okay, so that's part of the exploratory process on his part. Yeah. So he did that with you, and that he did that with your brother as well. That kind of thing. Okay.
Absolutely. And looking back, that's when you go, okay, like that, I see it all there. And then not just that, he would bring my brother and I out to eat. We'd go to Steamboat, and he'd drop. I mean, we'd get 3 or 4 appetizers. I one time got 2 entrees just because I was young and I wanted to stretch out and see what he'd pay for. Imagine your parish priest takes you out for Sunday lunch and you're eating escargot and a filet mignon. I mean, but we were young, and I loved escargot. I like filet mignons, right? I wasn't going to reject it. And mom and dad knew we were, he was taking us out to go eat, to celebrate whatever the occasion was. And sometimes mom and dad would be there too. But I mean, in the moment, you're like, it's just some old priest who's lonely, and he just wants to invite us out to eat.
Right. Was there ever alcohol involved, Alex?
Oh, absolutely. So he was an alcoholic, and we knew it.
Really?
Yes. He was an alcoholic. Really? It was so obvious. Absolutely an alcoholic.
Okay.
That was never, it's not like, that was nothing. That's not like now we figured out, we went, oh my gosh, he was an alcoholic. No, he was always an alcoholic. There were times where I could smell it on his breath before Sunday mass.
Which is in the morning.
Right. So there's no, that was always in play. Once again though, how did we justify that in our minds? Well, he's an old priest who's lonely. So he turns to booze. Once again, see, in our mind, I wouldn't do that to a person who didn't have a Roman collar, by the way. I said that old drunk needs to get himself together.
Yeah, right.
Right? You know,
right.
Like he needs to stop that. That's not right. That's not like, don't, you know, that's uncouth. But for a priest, they go, oh, gosh, he's lonesome. I mean,
and yet in a way, honestly, you should be holding the Roman priest to a higher standard. Yeah, it's like, okay, you're acting in persona Christi. You really should sober up, man.
But everyone in the parish knew, and it was kind of something we pushed under the rug. But when I'd go to his house, I'd have alcohol.
Is that so?
I liked.
Is that so? You had alcohol at his house.
I had alcohol at 16 or so, and it wasn't. I never had a lot. But I'd have scotch.
Wow. Did your mom and dad know that? Did your parents know that?
No. So another thing is, you want to talk about just him reading the room and knowing an environment, right? I think Father Mike is dumb, but I don't think he's not wily. All right, if that makes sense. So he's like a serpent, I guess. I still think he's book dumb, right? But in terms of grooming, the man knew what he was doing. So we're out in the country,
right?
So alcohol, and I come from a family that doesn't drink much at all. I mean, like my dad and mom, I never grew up where they drank, right? But beer or maybe some whiskey was never something that was very taboo, right? Like at 16 years old, you'll take a sip of your dad's scotch, or it's not something that's very like taboo out here. And he would give me alcohol, Father Mike, and I gladly liked the scotch because I liked the idea of drinking scotch. I thought it was fancy, right? And once again, he was like, well, you can drink with me because I'm the priest. I'm your parish priest. So it's okay when you're in my rectory.
But did you tell your parents? Did your parents know you were drinking with him?
No.
And did he say that? Did he say that, or was that just understood? Don't tell mom.
No, he said he made it clear. Don't tell your parents. It's okay. We're in my rectory though. Blah 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 blah. Like we're don't want to, because they might say that you can't. And we had multiple times too where Steamboat employees had stopped him because he would order drinks and then try to give them to me. And the waitresses saw that and were like, no, you can't do that. And there were times where he had told me, if they ask for your ID, just say you don't have it, and I'll tell them that you're 21. I mean, okay.
And so then you went off to college.
Yes.
Did Oliver's involvement with Father Mike continue then after you had gone off to college?
Yes. Now that I was gone, Oliver was the only one left as the quote unquote helper. And then of course, once he could drive at 16, he was able to drive himself there. But it was obvious too that Father Mike was obviously grooming him. He was grooming me, but I don't think it's not because he wanted me, because he invited Oliver over in a way that he never invited me. He'd invite me over for a cup of coffee in the afternoon. He tried to invite Oliver out to dinner.
And so I want to pause here and just say to the audience that are watching us, that I didn't necessarily expect that this is where the conversation was exactly going to go, Alex, but what you've just done is to present to our followers, to our audience, a very clear picture with some very specific points about how the grooming process works, right? And so for parents and for young people yourselves, the big red flags would be telling the child, because you guys were kids at that point, telling the kid, don't tell your parents. That is a major red flag. And making the person feel like they're special, they're set aside, um, and I'm going to indulge this person because they're so special. All of that is part of the grooming process. So I thank you for sharing this information with people, because I think, it just, like you said, you didn't think anything about it at the time. And obviously this is weirdly, there's nothing criminal about what he was doing at that point. Right.
No.
But when you look at it in a wider light, you see that it's part of a larger process. So let's go now back to, Oliver's told you about this.
Uh-huh.
Tell us a little bit about the impact that it had on you personally, and what you saw happening to Oliver, what you saw happening to the other members of your family, because I think sometimes people think clergy sex abuse. Oh, ick. Let's put the bad guys in jail and heal the people and say we're sorry and we're done. And people don't realize how many people are affected and how many different ways they're affected. So tell people, just what did this mean in your family's life, Alex?
So, oddly enough, and this might sound like over exaggeration, but in thinking, I've thought on this a lot. Our family wasn't prepared. We were prepared for this in some ways and unprepared in others. We were prepared for it in that we were already a very close-knit family. Very close-knit family. We were all homeschooled. We all loved each other. We all played together. We're very close-knit. I had no issues with my mom or dad other than your regular teenage stuff where I hate them for a good 5 minutes for telling me no. But other than that, everything was great. So we weren't used to even having to unify together to overcome something, right? We never even tested that unity out. So we were prepared in some ways, but unprepared just because we'd never been hit with something this big. So, it rocked the ship.
Right.
Dead stop. Every day was like a new challenge, a new something happening. Either mom and dad were on the phone all day long with calls and calling people, talking to this. At this point, I was married and I was going through OCD as a result of this, which I didn't figure out till later. And so I'd sit down for 2 or 3 hours and legitimately black out just thinking about everything. I would obsess over all the details, obsess over how do we get them, obsess over what Father Mike was doing at the moment. What was the bishop doing? How was Oliver? And it's weird. I'll tell you something that made me really upset one day. I remember crying for like an hour after this. And this will give you a good example. I remember my sister, Mary Helen, and don't ask me her age because I don't know it, but my sister, Mary Helen, my little sister, Mary Helen, one day I called her to figure out how things were going. And she was upset with my mom. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, every day for the past week, and now this was about a week or two after we figured out about Oliver. She said, every day for the past week, mom hasn't fixed us lunch until 1 o'clock. And I broke down into tears. Why is that important? Or why did that affect me? Because we always ate lunch at like 11:30. And mom always had it ready.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
it's a small detail, but it killed me. It crushed me.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Because the routine of your family disrupted.
Yes.
Now, did Mary Helen know what was going on?
I stayed away from it. I knew that it had to be mom and dad. All I know is I think at some point afterwards, mom and dad had told her everything's okay. We got this. Father Mike did something bad to Oliver, but we're taking care of it.
Uh-huh.
We're gonna take care of him, and we're gonna take care of Oliver. I think to some extent that now she's older now. She's 18 now, so possibly she knows more. But I haven't spoken. I don't even think I'd be able to speak right now to her about any of this. But I know obviously she's older and she knows there's a little more going on than, she's seen the news.
Right.
So I guess she knows.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and Mary Helen is one of the older of your younger siblings. So they're even younger siblings.
Right under Oliver.
Oh, okay. So it's Alex, Oliver, Mary Helen, and then 3 younger ones. Okay.
Yes.
So your mom and dad are trying to protect those little ones. because they don't need this information. They can't process this
Can't
information.
even process it
They
at this
can't,
point.
it doesn't mean anything, but their little lives, their little world is disrupted because mom hasn't fixed us lunch when she normally
Yeah.
does. And that's like, our little boat, our little normal is gone. Our normal is gone now. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was that little detail that was almost just too much for me to handle. But I mean, mom was on the phone constantly. She was angry all the time. Dad was angry all the time. Not at anyone in particular, because that's the problem, is we didn't know who to be angry at. So we were just all angry.
Right.
Just
Something
in the
happened that
air.
shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Something happened that shouldn't have happened, and we're mad about it, and we can't figure out what to do about it.
Yeah. And then the kids were just kind of existing.
Yeah.
They could see that mom was crying sometimes, that dad was crying sometimes, that I was calling, that there were whispers going on, right? We were going into other rooms. So the immediate effect to the family unit, it really, in my opinion, from me seeing it, of course, everything's going to be exaggerated from my point of view too, because I was destroyed at this point as well, right? So every little thing seemed like the end of the world to me.
Right.
But it was for me a sign that we were never going to go back to figuring out.
Right.
Like it was done. Like we might be able to, we're going to stabilize. We're going to have a new normal, but I don't want a new normal. I don't like new normals. I want old normal.
Right.
Everything was fine. Right. Like if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
So I don't want to find a new normal. I want the old normal.
Right.
So, but that was the realization for me that we were about to enter into something else.
Right.
We were going to have to regroup.
Right. It was never going to go back to the way it was.
No.
There was no way that it's ever going to go back to the way it was. Yeah. And that's a lot for a kid to figure out. Yeah. I mean, whatever the first thing in your life is that's like that, it's going to be a lot. But this is legitimately a lot for anybody. Yeah. Now, there are a number of aspects to what happened next, to how the diocese reacted and how the public reacted. What I'd like to do, if you don't mind, is just to focus on the lay community, not so much on the diocese, right? Because I mean, we can go there if we want to later, but in our work here at the Ruth Institute, we deal with clergy sex abuse, a lot, or we try to, from our, kind of unique academic perspective that we have on it. And people are always about, gosh, why doesn't the bishop do this or that or the other? Why doesn't the church do this or that? But there's also an aspect of your story about the lay people, what the community did and did not do. And so let's start with the positive, okay? Tell people some of the things that happened where people in your community were helpful to you. What are some of the specific things that people did that were helpful to you, and so that people can be thinking about that if they ever have to deal with this in their own community?
So I'll say, first of all, we're on the positives, but it's going to have to start with a little bit of negative.
Sure.
So when I mentioned community and the community, our immediate community was radio silence. So not a single person in our local community or in our church parish at the time at St. Peter's or in our little town did anything. They did nothing. They didn't reach out or anything. So when I say community, I'm going to be very broad with community, but because if you're talking about our localized community, they did nothing. So the community, though, the most supportive people, and I'm sure mom and dad might have different opinions of it, but for me, those who contacted me, who I felt the best, were those who followed almost a formula that was really helpful to me. And it was initial contact, and then they shared in my anger, right? Like, friends were, and it's very colorful language I won't repeat, but those friends that did the initial contact didn't beat around the bush either. Like, hey, so how are things going? No, you know how things are going, right? But hey, saw the news and then shared in my anger. And then if you need anything, let me know. Mm-hmm. They didn't ask any more questions. They didn't ask it. Well, sometimes someone asked, how was Oliver, which is a very acceptable question. But it was almost those who followed that formula. Those were the ones that I, in the future, shared more with, opened up a little more about myself with. And it was really that initial formula. Hey, saw the news. Short little thing on sharing the rage with me, right? Like, we're going to get them.
Mm-hmm. And so if I could just put a name on that, you called it sharing your rage, and that's true. But another part of it is sharing your desire that justice be done.
Yes.
Right. It's a desire for justice.
Yeah.
Yes. So what are some of the things that were not so helpful, so people can know what to avoid or think about? Because I heard your mom and dad shared a few things with me that I just couldn't believe. But anyway, go ahead, Alex.
So I will share with you some that I've heard, and I will tell you that I have responded to some of these people in ways that I know were probably on my end were a little much, but they came across so disgusting that I had to. I couldn't help but make sure that they knew that this is not something to be said. I'll give you a couple examples. Hey, Father so-and-so said he'd meet with you if you need to talk. Don't leave the church. I don't want to talk to your priest. Don't offer me to talk to your priest. Don't talk to your priest about me, then tell me.
Mm-hmm.
No thanks. Hey, sorry about everything that's happened. I hope you don't feel this way about all priests. My cousin's a priest and he's a good priest. I don't care about your cousin or the fact that he's a priest.
Right.
And I'm going to think badly about every priest right now because I want to, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
I don't know. I'm going to think badly about your cousin right now, and there's not a single thing you can do about it. The questions, hey, don't get too angry. Remember to pray. No, I'm going to be angry, and I'm not going to pray right now. I don't know what else to tell you. Your message changed nothing. So those sorts of things, or when things came out, we started expressing rage. I'd get a message, hey, just want to let you know, not everyone in the diocese is bad, and I know what happened to y'all is bad. But maybe don't try to disparage, the whole church. I'm not disparaging the whole church. Don't send me those messages.
Right.
So things like that. Relating my Father Bob at our church is a really good priest. Y'all should come to my church now. No.
Right.
I don't want to come to your church.
Right.
And I will share, since I think you said there's other people of other experiences. The other thing that just absolutely tore me apart, and Oliver got this too. And I know that this will happen both ways, except Catholics probably won't do it to Protestants because we know that we have a lot of issues right now. But our Protestant friends, and of course, I know that this was good meaning.
Right.
I know the intentions were good. Have you thought about converting?
Yeah. Right.
And I know that this has. I know that if I was a Methodist, this Baptist guy would do the same thing, right? So I didn't take it as an offense against the Catholic faith, but that's not the thing you want to hear. Have you thought about converting? We're Baptist. Our pastor's nice. No.
Right.
No, I'm not thinking about anything right now, even related to that, right? But we had the same things in the Catholic faith. Have you thought about coming to my church? No, right. I haven't. Thank you.
Right. Right.
Our priest is very nice. He doesn't molest children. Yeah, well, I'd have told you the same thing about mine 4 years ago. Right. So, that doesn't work on me now, right? I'd have told you the same thing.
Right. And in a sense, if I could just say what these people are doing, we have the sense that the institutional church tries to cover for itself and tries to preserve the good name and the good appearance of the church, and there are a bunch of reasons for that. But the lay people are doing that to us as well. So the lay people don't want to think that their father figure or their religious allegiance is being given over to something that's not good. No one wants to think that, obviously.
No, I have specifically ended relationships with people over the past few years who have accused me and my family, and this is my favorite one, of causing scandal and hurting the image of the church by filing suit and speaking out against it. And my response is always the same. What about the diocese causing scandal, or maybe the priest that molested my brother causing scandal? Do you not think the scandal had already began before
Right.
we started making noise?
Right.
But and then I have cautionary messages too about that. Hey, look, I know y'all guys are angry, and that's cool, but remember not to cause scandal. What does that mean?
Right. Right.
What do you, like we started it? No, I was dragged into this against my will.
Right. Right. Right.
So yeah, those are some common things we were talking, and some of them come from a place of goodwill, right?
That's right. That's right.
You know,
yeah.
But
and in a way, that makes it harder. That makes it harder because
it does.
Yeah.
And I've taken the approach that even if someone means well, I'm going to try not to be angry with them, but I'm going to respond harshly, not in a way that's overly malicious to them, but I'm going to respond harshly because I don't want to just go, oh, okay, cool, thanks, and then them do it to someone else, because
That's
I don't
right.
think they understand that a response like that back in the day would cause me to have to go to counseling. Simple responses, a sentence could cause me to have to leave work and go to counseling.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because this is another point people don't understand that we want people to understand, is that what happened to your brother was a traumatic experience for him. It only happened once. The incident itself took place once. But because of the betrayal of trust involved, it's a much bigger thing than one incident. And he was traumatized, and he needs to be treated therapeutically for trauma. And there's a lot that goes into that. And I'm not a therapist, so I'm not going to pretend I know what I'm talking about. But you were also traumatized. Something happened to you that threatens your world as you know it. Something happened to your little brothers and sisters that threatened their life as they know it. I know a little bit about trauma because of having 2 hurricanes and a major flood within 1 year. Okay. So your life is threatened, right? My life was threatened. And it's like, oh, all this kind of crazy stuff happens to your brain. You're not thinking as clearly. And a lot of things go into that whole trauma thing. So tell people just a little bit about the way in which your brother's trauma has traumatized you, and then the re-traumatization of the way people are handling the situation.
Yeah. So through counseling, I didn't want to go to counseling because I'm a big, tough guy.
Yeah.
But after, that was how I said, I'll take care of it myself. But after what I now found out was like OCD, after going through that compulsion where I'd zone out for like 3-4 hours in a day, sitting down in the same spot, eventually I kept just having crying spells. About once a week, I'd just cry, just end of story, just cry. And it'd go on for an hour, 2 hours. And eventually I went to counseling. And what I found out was that I have a PTSD from the night of being told what happened. And so that made sense, because from basically that night on, and I still have, a lot of it's under control now. But I had reoccurring night terrors, crying spells, panic attacks, fits of rage where I had to break something. I'd have this rage, and I'd break pencils and pens or just whatever was in front of me, and I had to do it. Like I had to break something.
And you never had anything like that before. You didn't go around breaking stuff before that.
No, not at all. So the panic attacks, crying spells, but then I was also in constant fight or flight. Simple interactions with other humans became fighting. I was rude to other people. I'd go off on people. I was always scared someone was out to get me. For a while I slept with a gun on my nightstand, only because I was scared I was perpetually scared someone was out to get me, and I couldn't sleep. And I'd go look out the windows of my house, looking out the windows to see if there's anyone there. I'd hear noises. The night terrors were very real. And I'd fantasize about murdering Father Mike. So very graphic dreams that were on repeat of different ways I'd kill him, torture him, whatever it may be. Also dreams where I was present at the abuse, but looking through the window.
Oh, wow.
That was a reoccurring one.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a rough one. So it took a while. And even now I still have night terrors. I'll wake up in a sweat. so I went through counseling for all of that. And one of the biggest issues is I got over the compulsion. My counselor was very good with that. He attacked that first, the OCD, and I would actually schedule and designate obsession time.
Oh, okay. That was
Where
his suggestion for how to
That was
deal
his
with it?
suggestion.
Mhm.
So I'd sit down for like 30 minutes and I'd time it, and I would just obsess over everything for 30 minutes. And that was my obsession time. And I didn't allow myself to obsess any time out of that. And doing that practice for a couple months, almost a year, I don't have that anymore. I've
Wow.
had to struggle with that. But if I do an obsession thing where I just sit down and go, okay, for the next 15 minutes, I'm just going to obsess.
Mhm.
Um,
And I
And
want to
so that
pause.
was-
I want to pause here just for a moment and remind the audience that you were a newlywed while all this is going on. Okay. And so you were new. I mean, this happened right before you got married. And so therefore your new wife is also dealing with all of that. And she loves Oliver herself. She has her relationship with Oliver too. So the ripple effects from the original trauma are going far beyond the original victim, right? It goes all over the place. So anyway, continue.
Yeah, absolutely. So the compulsion was a big thing to get over. The only real thing left that's been a major strain on my life, besides I still have the panic attacks. I had one recently actually, but I still have the panic attacks where sex abuse will get brought up, or I'll run into a priest who I just don't like, something like that, and your chest tightens. You start getting short of breath. You feel angry. I feel my head, like my temperature increase, blood pressure increase. There's that, and then there's the ever since it has happened, and it's gradually gotten to the point where now it's the most kind of prominent thing mentally, but lack of empathy.
Oh, wow.
I have it is very hard for me to empathize with anyone who isn't in my family now. It's almost like I don't know, an egoism that encompasses not just myself though, but my entire family. And so I have no empathy problems with my children, with my wife. But I've lost some friendships and relationships over the course of the past 2 or 3 years, just over the lack of my ability to be able to empathize with them. And the closest answer I basically have gotten through counseling was that so many emotions were sent to me. So many emotions were felt so strongly over the course of the last 3 years. And this sense of having to fight, almost like I'm in a war, and defend my family. So my wife, my kids, my siblings, my mom and dad, that basically it's like my brain is shut off empathizing with anyone else.
Right.
My only concern is just protecting. So it's led to a radical individualism on my part. And I've shut myself off from many of my friends and relationships, and I don't form new relationships well because I just don't care. I have no interest. I have no interest in friends, no interest in anyone outside of my family.
Yes, because it's like your psychic and relational energy is completely absorbed.
Yes.
Defending Castle Peyton.
Yes,
and whoever's inside Castle Peyton, you're there for them, but anybody else, you don't have it.
It's too much.
It's too much.
It makes me start to feel ill.
Yeah.
And then it triggers all my old stuff.
Yeah.
So if they tell me what they're going through, I'll have a nightmare that night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I might have a panic attack and need to go to counseling.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't be there for anything dramatic. And my friends who I've stayed close to know that. Like they know I cannot physically, mentally speak to them if they were going through something traumatic. I can't handle it.
And so part of a mark of them being your friend is that they can accept that. They understand that's not the totality of Alex Peyton. It's who Alex Peyton is right now. And they accept that in you.
Yeah. And they know, and I'm very open with them about it. They know that I literally cannot help them.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. Well, Alex, you are pretty much of an open book kind of guy. I can tell that. And seriously, this interview, I think this interview is going to be very helpful to a lot of people. Okay. And
I hope
so
so.
it's just you and me here, and I'm not traumatizing you, hopefully, you know. And so
No,
hopefully you
I'm
won't need a
good.
nap after this. I
No,
might
I'm
need a
good.
nap. I might need a nap after this, but hopefully people can see this and just see how serious this matter
Mhm,
is, because in a way your family is, I don't want to sound wrong, but you're relatively lucky in that
mhm.
Oliver brought it out quickly. Okay,
Yes.
3 years is great. I hate to say that, but in Father Sullins' research on this subject, he
Yeah.
analyzed the Pennsylvania grand jury report. The average time was 28 years. Okay, so
Yeah.
the fact that Oliver brought it up early, the fact that your parents didn't say, "Oh, a priest would never do that," because that's another way that the kids in the past were getting traumatized by
Yep.
that. The fact that Father Guidry, for all of his craziness, he did in fact confess. I mean, they have on record that he confessed. Now, he's a weasel ever since. He's tried to get out of the sentence and, all
Yeah.
kind of stuff like that. But he did confess, okay,
Since
well,
day one.
that's something. So as grim as it might seem, um, the fact that you and your family are willing to continue to be open about it, you are being a blessing to other people. You may not feel it, dude. I know you're not feeling it.
No.
But I think this interview is going to be a blessing. I mean, I think for parents who are concerned that your kids may be in some kind of compromised situation, I want you to go back and review this part where Alex was talking about the grooming process. You really need to study that and think about it and take it seriously.
And Dr. Morse, if I can real quick, I know we're approaching the end here. Can I give one more statement on the grooming?
Yes, please.
So when I worked for the Archdiocese of New Orleans, I was a youth minister. And of course, I had a job as a youth minister for a diocese right after I got married and all of this happened, right? So I was very hyper focused on being safe
Okay.
and very hyper focused on implementing safe environment. And so I'll tell you that safe environment is very impractical when combined with what the church has typically done with youth programming. So you can either have safe environment or change your programming. And so when I was a youth minister, I used to have to go to counseling for myself after going to big youth events like Abbey Youth Fest and World Youth Day, which is a local New Orleans one, not the big one, but World Youth Day. And I will tell you that go there as an outsider, go there as someone like me. And I had went and had a conversation with the Archbishop about the things I saw there. Priest walking, young priests too, walking with kids with their arms around them, sitting next to them with their arms around them, patting legs, grabbing them by the shirt to put them back into line, right? Grabbing their arm, playing kid games where there was lots of contact. And I remember speaking to the Archbishop, and he took it very seriously. But he also mentioned how, that's just normal contact. And he's right. It is normal contact. But when kids experience that contact, even through good priests, it cements in them the idea that we had, which is that it's okay for it to be done.
Right.
And so it was traumatic for me. And one of the reasons why I had to quit my job, besides the fact that I wasn't paid a lot, but whatever. But and I was moving on, right? But I could no longer sit there and act like it was okay to watch children be touched by priests, even in these innocent ways.
And what you're saying is that the that normal affectionate touching
Yes.
outside the family isn't really normal. It doesn't really
No.
belong there. some of those youth events are probably questionable in any case because they're overnight events with
Yes.
limited supervision and and mixed sex,
Yeah.
so if the girls and boys are going, even if the priest is cool,
Yeah.
even if the adults are fine, yeah, maybe we're setting up 10 patients that we shouldn't be setting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the point of that isn't to try to cause fear, but I just want the audience who have kids who participate in that, if you really want to see, you should volunteer, be a chaperone,
Yep.
and go to one of those events and make sure you watch your kid. But secondly, go with the intention of watching the interaction between clergy and children and and the laity, how they react. And you will be quite surprised
Right.
at how it is. And then you won't be surprised at how easy it is to create a culture of grooming in the Catholic faith and in the context of these youth events. It is so easy. The grooming is just right there, and it's so simple. And parents are going to sit right across from the priest while the grooming happens.
Wow. You know what? This is the creepiest thing you've said the whole time.
And that's why I wanted to say it. I wanted to get it out.
I'm glad you did. And actually, the good priests don't need to be touching kids, and they know they don't need to be touching kids. They'll be fine. The good priests will be fine. They'll recover.
That's the other thing, is I couldn't imagine a good priest going, darn, I can't touch a kid. I only do it the good way. What is this?
Right.
No. No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, Alex Payton, this has been a real pleasure talking with you. I really appreciate your willingness to share this information with us. And I know, I'm sure there's going to be controversy. I'm sure people are going to quarrel with us about this, but that's okay. That's okay. I think the conversation needs to go forward. We need to be unafraid to have this type of conversation and to share this kind of information, because the fear is killing us. The fear is killing us as much as anything. So listen up, Ruthies. Was this not great? Was this not great, Ruthies? Okay, so I want you to share this with anyone you know, okay? Because the problem of childhood sex abuse is endemic across society. It's not a problem. It's not just the Catholic problem. But we feel, at the Ruth Institute, we feel it's our church, it's our problem. We're going to deal with it. It's not going to be fun, but we're going to deal with it. And I don't see anybody else dealing with it, So, Alex, I appreciate your contribution here, that I just really think a lot of people are going to be blessed.
Thank you, Dr. Morse.